Hi, and welcome to the Virgin River Cafe Rewatch podcast. Good morning, Gigi.
Good morning, Tracy. How's it going?
Um, it's been better. We had a few technical difficulties this morning, which delayed us getting started, and we needed to enlist the help of my husband, who then further enlisted the help of our daughter, who fixed the problem in like 5 minutes. We fumble around for 30 minutes, and the 16-year-old rolls in and goes, clickety, click, 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 all fixed.
It's their
Uh,
generation.
it is their
It's their
generation.
generation.
It's just frustrating because I literally checked everything I thought to check, and she like, oh, clickety, click, click, and it's done.
Yeah, it's this is not our world anymore, my friend.
I
Not
know,
our world.
it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating. She just, she's figured it out. She just figured it out.
Uh,
Whatever.
and yes.
Just fix it for your mother. Okay, I taught you how to use a spoon. So there you go. Anyway,
Uh,
on that
yes.
note, we're going
Yes.
to find a little zen,
Yes.
finally get started.
Take a couple of sips of your coffee. You'll find
Yes,
your
yes.
be
Um,
fine.
Today I'm having iced coffee with brown sugar flavor.
Uh,
So,
yes. Well, I have at one of my jobs yesterday, my client brought me back a fruit drink. It has chocolate in it. It's
yum.
coffee, chocolate, and it's some sort of dolce latte something or the other.
Oh,
I don't know.
some
It's
fancy schmoozy kind of
well, the thing
bougie.
about it is, I think it was an experiment for their new spring coffee coming out, and they selected a few clients, and my client basically said he doesn't do chocolate, which I understand. He's a man, he doesn't get it, but he says our nurse has it and she likes it, so I'm gonna give it to her. So I said okay, and he brought it for me. So I was like, okay, good, let's go for it.
Nice.
So I am just thrilled. So I
I would
saved it
take
for.
leftover somebody's extra coffee. Like, yes,
Well,
and thank you.
the thing is, it's a fresh coffee that he brought me, because, and I knew I couldn't drink it at the time he brought it. I
Yeah,
I know that's
save it
sacrilege.
for the next day.
So I saved it for this morning. So it
Perfect.
traveled all the way from the city
On
to
the
home.
train, too, because you take the train
I
from San Francisco to your little
exactly.
neck of the woods. You get a lovely
Yeah,
train ride every day.
I do. I do. I definitely do. And
I need to do
with
that sometime. I want to ride the train.
and the thing about it is, it's great because in the wintertime, because we're now getting over Christmas. When it was Christmas, we saw the light. You saw the lights when you
Yeah,
passed.
on your ride. Yeah,
Right. It was really nice. And some people, man, they go all out.
yeah,
You
they do.
know, you're like, and then you look at the houses next to the houses that have the Goyard, and
They're like
you could find it.
Grinch.
Yeah. Well, no, they're like, yeah, we can't compete with that.
Don't even try.
They're not even trying. So they're letting that person take the whole. So anyway,
All right. Well, let's get started.
we're in season 4, episode 2. Father knows best. There's a
Yes, but does he? Does he now? And which father are we referring to? Let's
hmm
find out.
we have many to choose from.
Well, Jack and Bree's father,
Hmm.
hmm,
Yep.
causes friction when he comes into town. He's kind of that guy. Like
Yep.
he's a pot stirrer. That guy. Um,
Well, he likes things his own way, is what he likes.
yes, he's very particular and very headstrong. An
Mm.
incident at work affects Mel, and Doc gets to know his unexpected visitor.
Mm.
Okay, well, let's see where this takes us. So we start off in the emergency room, which, if we remember correctly, how we ended last episode, Brady was getting stabbed
Mm-hmm.
in jail from a guy he thought maybe was going to be at least someone he could tolerate. And it turns out that guy was Jimmy's cousin, was chumming up to him in order to
Let his
get
guard down.
closer, get his guard down, and took advantage of it. When Jimmy couldn't get the knife in, the cousin took care of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we are now at Grace Valley hospital. And because he's a prisoner, they treat prisoners very differently. He's probably handcuffed to the bed. He's got an officer with him. Oh, no, they're not at Grace Valley. They're at St. Joseph Hospital. And it's about maybe 6:30 at night. They have an inmate number. And he's heading to surgery. Now, Mike is already there. Jack shows up with Mel. And they're all frantic. And they're like, have you heard anything? And they're like, no. And because Mel's a nurse, she works with people at the hospital, she goes to try and get some information. Because they're not going to necessarily tell the family. That's kind of how things work. They tell you when they want to tell you. They're not going to just come out and give you the updates. Whereas if you're a nurse or a doctor or in the medical field or something, or maybe a firefighter, paramedic, you can go talk to somebody you know who will find out. So Mel's off to go get some info. So Mike shares with Jack that Jimmy tried to get rid of Brady. It was actually Jimmy's cousin, which we said, who shivved him. Because Jack is like, what the heck happened? Now, you know, Jack feels so guilty because he literally just remembered what happened. He remembered that Brady, yes, Brady was there. They did argue, but Brady didn't shoot him. It was Vince. It was Paige's ex-husband's brother. Twin brother. So now Jack feels so guilty. He says to Mike, we got to get him out of there. And Mike is like, look, Brady's not your problem. He's like, look, I'm telling you that he is. And he goes, Mike didn't know yet because this just came to the realization when he was talking to Preacher. Like, he hadn't even had a chance to tell Mike yet.
Yeah.
And he tells Mike, Brady didn't shoot me. And Mike is like, then who was it? Now, of course, Brie shows up because she gets the word. And, you know, she's sort of still in love with him, even though she's a little bit mad at him because of the whole, they found the gun under your seat.
The thing is, she's in love with him. Take my word for it. The problem
she just doesn't know how she feels about it.
Well, not only that, it's the fact that her brother got hurt.
Yeah.
So, and she loves her brother more than life itself.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact is that if you got to choose between the man you love and your brother who you love,
hands down,
the man you love is going to lose on this, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
So she's found herself between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, and it's not a fun place to be.
No, it's not. And until they can clarify, and now that we can, this is the line she's going to be walking until
Mike,
that happens.
you know, but Mike is a detective, and he's a facts guy. He's an evidence guy, and so, you know, they're not taking what Jack remembers yet.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
because
we'll look into it. We have a direction.
Right. They have to find proof what Jack is.
Yeah. Show me the evidence.
And my question is, how did that gun get into Brady's car? Is my question. You know what I mean?
That comes out later.
Yes, I know, but you know, that's
the whole thing. It's like, and Brady even said somebody planted it. I didn't. Somebody planted that. You know, and of course that will come out. But I mean, if somebody wants to make him look guilty, they've done a really good job.
Yeah, so of that.
So Mike is like, okay, then who? If it wasn't Brady, Jack is like, I'm pretty sure it was the guy that took Christopher. Now, and honestly, that doesn't even make sense. Because even the look on Mike's face is like, Wes's brother Vince? Like, what? Like, how are these things even related? Like, one doesn't seem to have anything to do with the other.
One of these things are not like the
other. That's what I was trying to think of that saying. Thank you. Because I was literally thinking of that and I couldn't remember.
That's a Sesame Street thing. We all learn, people.
Yep. And Jack is like, Preacher? Because he hired a PI to try and figure out where Christopher is in the search for Christopher. The PI turned up some security footage. And Jack is like, I've seen it with my own eyes. And he goes, look, I told you, Jack. Mike's like, the gun was a match. And Jack is very firm. He's like, I'm telling you, he's innocent. And Brie is just like, shut up, everybody. How bad is it? Like, is he, like, you guys are all arguing about who shot who and what, how is he? Like, is he okay?
He's like, what happened to my man?
Yeah, where is my man? And Jack's like, nobody knows yet. So Mel comes back and she goes, okay. So he has a lacerated kidney. The cut was deep, but it missed the renal artery, which is good because that he would have bled out. Like, literally, if you get one of those big arteries as you're heart pumps,
Yeah,
it literally will pump the blood right out of your body.
exactly.
So fortunately, it missed all the major stuff, and she, they're like, "Is he out of surgery?" And she's like, "No, not yet." And Brie is like, "But is he gonna survive?" And Mel's like, "Yeah, I think so."
Oh, and the guilt. The
Oh
guilt.
yeah. So Mel of course has an in. The nurse told me that she's going to text me when he gets into the recovery room. So they're going to find out before even the doctors come out and talk to the family. They got all the inside information. So Bree is just a mess. And she's like, I need a minute. And she like walks away and she's just like, oh my God. Because in a way, she's thinking, I'm a good lawyer. I know what I'm doing. I have a good judge of character. And then she picks Brady, who's like into drugs, pushing drugs and all this illegal stuff. And then her brother shoots him. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. It's like she's just questioning her whole existence at this point. I mean, I feel really bad for Brie because it's like everything that she knew in
Yeah.
her life that was the straight and narrow is like gone.
Yeah.
Like she can't
Welcome
even
to Virgin
trust.
River.
She cannot even trust herself at this point,
Hmm.
and she's mad at Brady, but should she be mad at Brady? And yes, he did wrong, but he didn't do the really, really wrong thing, so everybody's
Yeah,
kind of a mess.
that's an
Goodness.
understatement.
So Jack needs to get some air. So him and Mel, they tell Mike, we're gonna go outside. We're gonna take a walk, and she brings him outside. And there's this like little bench right outside the door. She's like, babe, you can't blame yourself. I mean, he will because he accused Brady. And if he hadn't pushed so hard to accuse Brady, he may not have gotten arrested and been in jail in order to get stabbed. If he would have just kind of let
Yeah.
them investigate and maybe they would have come up
Yeah.
that it was Brady later at some point. And, I mean, we
Well,
really don't know. I mean, you just can't predict how things are going to turn
but
out.
but remember how his visions were coming across. They were coming across so blurred.
Yeah,
And then
jumbled and not enough
right,
information to really mean anything. Yeah, he
right,
was there, but that doesn't
exactly,
mean anything.
exactly.
Because clearly he was there. He admitted he was there. And him saying he didn't do it wasn't enough. They, gung ho, arrested him. Now, it was the gun that got him in jail. So that wasn't Jack's fault. Jack didn't plant the gun, Jack didn't put the gun there. So somebody wanted him in jail. So, I mean, he may have been there, but it may not have turned out this way. We just don't know. So Jack's really upset. He's like, I read the situation wrong, and she's like, I should have known that Brady wasn't. I mean, I think deep down he always knew that Brady wasn't the one that shot him. But even Mel is like trying to help him rationalize his thinking. He's like, look, you've told me that Brady made really bad choices, in the past, in the present, probably in the future. So in Iraq, if it wasn't for him, you
Yeah.
know,
There's a lot of coulda, shoulda, wouldas going on here.
I
Let's
know.
put it that way.
And
Lots of coulda.
Jack breaks it down to like, because Brady's the younger guy of the group. Like he's probably one of the
Hmm.
youngest. He goes, Brady's crime was being basically an impatient kid
Hmm.
who just didn't follow orders. He says he didn't mean to get Lonergan killed or for
Hmm.
Lonergan to die. So we still don't really know what
Right. What
happened
happened?
there. They've not explored that. And here we are in the beginning of season 4, and even through season 6, we've not touched on that. Like how specifically what exactly happened. So, I mean, even through season 6, they still have not addressed it. Now, we've said before, a conversation happened between Mike and Brady about something that Mike is hiding. I wonder if it'll come out at some point. Because we
Hmm.
know there's more to the story.
Oh, definitely,
And,
definitely.
and maybe they're just going to, like, little at a time, just when everything gets good, they're going to drop a bomb. Because, that's how these shows are. They give you the false sense of security and then they, set off a bomb. Oh my. Can we all
That's
have
why.
can we have a minute?
That's why it's called suspense.
Yeah, I know. So Mel
It's
is trying to like help him talk through this. She's always like his therapist in a way. She's like, look, Brady.
She's everybody's therapist.
Yeah, I know. She's the most empathetic person on the show. So, I mean, if you need someone to help you through something, Mel's your girl. And she's talking to him, and she's like, look, Brady has a history of being impulsive. And
True.
he's working for Calvin, and, he's looking out for himself. He doesn't think about other people. And Jack's like, yeah, but if I had believed him, he wouldn't be lying there right now.
Again, coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Right.
Doesn't help anybody.
And she's like, Jack. And he's like, yeah, but it's true. And she's like, Jack, you didn't put him in jail. The evidence did. Whether or not the evidence is real or not, we still don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But the evidence is what put him there. It didn't matter what Jack said. So
True.
The phone rings, and Mel answers it, and she's like, Hi, Joellen. She's like, uh-huh. Oh, okay, I'll let him know. And her eyebrows are up, and she's like, okay, thanks. And he's like, what is it? And he goes, your dad just checked into the B&B? And he's like, my dad is at the B&B? And she's like, yeah, Joellen called and said he wanted you and Brie to meet him at the bar in the morning. He goes, why wouldn't he just call me directly? She's like, ah. It's like, oh, I love this. He goes, Christ, can this day get any worse? And she's like, well, we could be held up at gunpoint again and kidnapped. And she's trying to be funny. He goes, don't. Hold on. I got to make sure I get all this because it's really funny. And she says this so coyly, which is so funny.
Yeah.
He's like, don't even go there. She goes, well, it's true. I mean, it could be that, or I don't know. I could be pregnant with triplets. And she just says it so nonchalantly, and he's looking at her like, what? He goes, wow, I can't believe you just said that. And he's like, now you're just being mean. And she like laughs, and she leans into him and leans against him. And he goes, you're horrible, horrible human being. She goes, no, I'm not. I'm just being silly. And they're just like chuckling and laughing about it. And he kisses her on the top of the head. And it's really cute because this scene, again, because prior to the launch of season 6, they have never done photo shoots, promos, nothing. Everything that you see for promotional is all screenshot. And this is like the two of them on the bench. They use it for when they sign autographs. They use it for promotional stuff. They used it for Welcome to Season 4. So this is one of those iconic photos that everyone is very familiar with. And she's like, come on, it'll be nice, to get to spend time with your dad. And he's like, oh, okay. Yeah. She goes, what? He goes, your optimism is really cute. Because, no. So this is a beautiful scenery shot. And a lot of people don't notice, but Mel is actually in the bottom right-hand corner, standing there, like looking at everything.
And if you notice also, when they do some of the road scenes, if you're looking, you'll see Mel's red car,
or her running, or Jack's car. Yeah, it's usually not just a arbitrary scenery shot. Usually when it's a road, it's someone's going somewhere, and then when you get to the scene, it's like, this is where they showed up to, this was on their way. So she's enjoying the view, which is beautiful.
Stunning.
It's like a little cavern of a little lake or something.
Little cove.
So we're at the cabin, which is so beautiful, and Jack's in there brushing his teeth, and he checks his phone. And he's like, hey, how's Brady? And this is cute. Brie's at the hospital. She stayed there. Seems like everybody else left. She stayed. She's like, he's not allowed visitors, but I'm going to try and see him anyway. Now, this is a woman with a plan.
Oh, yeah. She's a lawyer with a plan.
Yeah.
It's a big difference.
Oh, yeah. And he's like,
this is not only a woman. This is a lawyer with a plan, because girlfriend is not going to be taken no for an answer.
She is determined. And he's like, speaking of visitors, Dad's in town. He checked into the B&B last night. And she's like, yeah, I know. He called me. He's like, wait, you knew he was coming? She goes, no, I was as shocked as you are. He goes, well, why isn't Mom with him? And she's like, I don't know. Dad has never taken a trip without her. And it's like, maybe something up with him. And Jack is like, Dad's always acted like he was above us, including Mom. So Bree's like, you're just saying that because you and Dad didn't get along, which is true. He goes, yeah, well, you should see how sweet that he is with her. And he's like, yeah, well, all I remember is arguing. Now, when he left, he was like 18.
Right. He enlisted and he was said, hasta la vista, baby.
Yeah. And so Brie was like, I don't know, maybe 6. No, not that. No, I don't think she's that.
No,
I think she's about the same age as Mel, which is approximately 8 years younger. Yeah, I think because she's the youngest and he was the oldest except for his older brother. So I kind of feel like they're about 8 years apart. So maybe she was around 10 when he was about 18. That's about right. I think somewhere along the line they mentioned there's like 10 years between them, or 8 years between them. I think she is a little bit younger than Mel because remember they said when they were talking about being at Chapman.
When they went to college. Yeah.
They were there at the same time. So I think Mel might have been a year or two ahead of her.
Mm-hmm.
So that puts her at about 10 years younger than Jack.
Yeah.
So I think she's like early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So her memory of them, and she grew up with them. Like he left when he was 18. She was there until she probably went to college. So she had another bunch of years without Jack around, without them arguing. You know, maybe a lot of their arguing was, what is Jack going to do with his life? Once he's not there doing his own thing, maybe things got better, maybe things were different. So her reality of the parents' married life is very different than Jack's.
Yeah.
Because by then, the older brother had passed, and they were getting through it.
Well, also the fact is, Brie has no memory of Adam.
She was, not at all.
You know, because
she was too little.
The thing was, well, I don't think she was even born.
No, they said she was too little. I remember them saying she was a baby.
All right.
That she was there, but she just she wouldn't have remembered because she was too little.
Right. Okay.
So all Jack remembers is them arguing, and she's like, well, you lived with him like 20 years ago. And he's like, anyway, we're supposed to meet him in a couple hours at the bar, and since Mom's not here to referee, that's going to be your job, okay? And she's like, look, I've been here all night. I'm not leaving until I see Brady. This is my only chance to talk to him alone. And he's like, you're going to leave me with Dad by myself? She's like, look, I'll take him off your hands as soon as I can. As Mel walks in, he's finishing up his phone call.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you seriously owe me. She's
and
like,
somehow,
I know, you're the best.
I feel his pain. Pain.
So he sees Mel and he's like, hey. And she's like, hi. And he's like, I missed you this morning. She goes, well, she's like, I woke up at 5 and I couldn't go back to sleep. So I went for a run. And she gives him a little kiss. And he's like, how was your run? He says, it was amazing. It's gorgeous outside. He's like, okay, good. Now he's looking very concerned.
Mm-hmm.
He just looks worried, and he's like,
right.
He's like, should you run? He's like, what do you mean, running alone? And she gets herself a glass of water. He goes, no, the baby, and he points at her stomach. And she's like, oh, no. She goes, it's fine, because I ran before I got pregnant. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, they don't want you to do anything new, like powerlifting. And he's like, oh, right. He goes, well, what about, like, power walking? I heard that's even better than running. Like, he would like to wrap her in bubble wrap and keep her and feed her like a zoo animal in bed. Like he would like to just wrap her up and keep her safe because he doesn't want anything to happen. And she's like, Jack, and he goes, running, like power walking, it's for the knees, it's good, and for the back. And he's like, I just don't want you to push yourself too hard. And she's like, honey, if anybody is being careful, it's me, okay? He's like, I'm not questioning your judgment. She goes, oh, okay, thanks for clearing that up. And so he's like, what's on deck for today? She's like, well, I'm going to stop by and visit Hope after work, because remember, Hope is home now from the hospital. She goes, and we sent her flowers. And Jack's like, oh, that's very sweet of us. And she's like, yes, we're very sweet people. And he's like, tell Hope that I'll visit her as soon as my dad leaves, because God, we've got to deal with that first. And he's like, so what time are you gonna see your dad? He's like, About 10. And she's like, well, maybe I'll stop by and say hello. She's like, he was so sweet to me when you were in the hospital. Because remember, for 3 weeks when he was getting shot, he was in the hospital, he was recovering. Brie came to town, the parents came to town, everybody like rallied around him. So that was the first time that she had probably met everybody, was when he's like unconscious and shot. It's not even like he got to introduce her to his family. It happened because of a tragic shooting. And so as they're talking about this, she comes up behind him and she starts rubbing his shoulders. And he's like, oh, was he now? He was sweet. And she's like, oh, honey. And he's like, what? And she's like, your shoulders are really tense. And he goes, yeah, well, my dad tends to have that effect on me. And she's like, well, a hot shower for two might help. As she puts her chin on his shoulder and he turns around to kind of look at her. Big dimply smile. And he's like, oh, yeah? He goes, think that'll do the trick? And she's like, mm-hmm. She's like, I think so. And she goes, heat therapy's proven to be very effective, as she takes his hand and starts walking him toward the bathroom. She goes, for muscle spasms. And he's like, oh, okay. He goes, well, who am I to argue with the nurse? As they go into the bathroom, turn around and slam the door. Very cute, the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
So now we are going over to Hope's house. Now, she's still recovering, still not herself. Doc says that Mel and Jack sent her flowers, and she goes, oh, that was very nice of them. And he's trying to show them to her, and it's like a bouquet of roses, and he just puts them on the table, and she's like, do you want to call and say thank you? And she kind of looks at him and goes, well, if you could take care of it, that'd be great. She's just kind of paging through a magazine. And he's like, honey, isolating yourself is not healthy. He's, I think we need to ask your neurologist if you can. And she's like, no more doctors. If you keep pushing, that'll include you. Uh-oh. And he's like, okay, I gotta go about this a different way. Let's take a nice cleansing breath. And she's like, fine, okay, what do you want me to do? He goes, well, Joellen called. She said that the sewing circle is meeting over at Jack's. She goes, I am not ready for that level of chit-chat. She goes, you will be so much happier surrounded by all of your friends. I mean, he's trying, he knows what she needs, but she's a stubborn one. So he's like, look, just give it an hour.
Please, the words stubborn and hope go hand in hand.
I know. And she gives him a look like, yeah, I'm not doing that. He goes, okay, 30 minutes. She's like, 29 minutes and not a second more, because she has to win. So he smiles and he grabs her hand and he's like, deal. He's like, excellent. And he's like, oh, and by the way, you should probably get ready. They're expecting you over there in 30 minutes. And she's like, what? And she goes, what if I had said no? He goes, I hadn't even considered it. Oh my gosh. So now we're back at the hospital, and because Brady is in jail.
Prisoner.
He's a prisoner. He's
okay. So now
we
we get to see what Brie is made of as for a look.
It is so funny because this guard is a very large man. He is like 6 foot whole bunch. And she's like knee high to a grasshopper. She's a teeny tiny little thing. I mean, he's sitting down. He's sitting down and he comes up to her shoulder. So he stands up. She's going to have to like look up to him, but I don't think it matters. So talk about a woman with a purpose. She is walking with purpose. And she's like, before she even gets to him, she starts talking. She goes, I'm the patient's attorney.
Yeah, she's about to kick ass and he don't even know that yet.
And he's like,
look at the size of this man.
I know. She barely comes up to his shoulder. She's like,
and he's built like a flipping linebacker.
Oh yeah, he's huge. He's like, unless you have clearance from the watch commander, you're not getting in. And she's like, uh-huh. She takes a deep breath and she's like, is your watch commander aware that inmates have the right to establish healthcare directives? He goes, I have no idea. She goes, well, my client has not been given any such opportunity, which is in direct violation of California Penal Code 2604. Subsequently, the hospital and the prison assume legal liability for willful neglect to provide a basic standard of care, as designed by the 8th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. He's like, lady. He's like, you can either let me in so I can secure my client's directive, or I will contact the hospital CEO, the prison warden, and the press, who will be happy to camp out at your front lawn until you can offer up an explanation for participating in this miscarriage of justice. And she kind of
now we can breathe.
And he's just looking at her and her little pack of dynamite, going, if I let you in, will you leave me alone? And she's like, yeah, it would be my pleasure. with a little smile. And he just kind of nods like, go, get out of my face, lady. I don't
Uh,
need this kind of aggravation.
and that is Sheridan power for you right there, people.
He's so big. Oh my God. Okay, so we're back at the bar. And
Uh,
Preacher comes out of the kitchen. He's like, to Jack, he's like, hey, how you holding up? And he goes, surviving. And Preacher's like, would you mind if I take off for a few hours this afternoon? A buddy of mine from the veterans group suggested an Aikido class. It could help me with all the stress. And he goes, yeah, sure, dude, whatever you need. He goes, we're partners. You don't need to ask for time off. He goes, well, I appreciate it. And just as they're talking, Mel walks in. She's on her phone, but she's walks in. And Preacher's like, hey, Jack, whatever happened to proposing? As they're both looking at Mel. And he's like, we decided to wait. Now, he doesn't know why. He goes, so she turned you down? He goes, for your information, I never officially asked. He goes, well, whatever gets you through the day. So they kind of chuckle. And he goes, hey, Mel. Hey, Preach. And she's like, oh, my love, for you. And gives her a cup of coffee. He goes, so is your dad here yet? He goes, no, he never showed up. He goes, really? And he goes, oh, damn. Just as Preacher's walking out the door to go fill up people's coffee, the dad walks in, sees Preacher, gives him a nice pat on the shoulder, like, how you doing? And then Jack's like, ugh, spoke too soon. So they kind of smile, and they're like, she gives him a wave, and she goes, oh, Mel, good to see you. You're looking luminous. And he goes, oh, thank you, Sam. I'm so happy to have you for a visit. And Jack is like, hi, Dad. And they do a handshake. Like, they're so formal and uncomfortable and awkward. It's like the weirdest father-son relationship. And he goes, son, as he shakes his hand. And he goes, so, this is the famous Jack's Bar. And Mel is like, you've not been here before? And he's like, oh, yeah, between teaching and publishing for the university, my time is limited. Stuck up. Oof.
Yeah.
And Jack's like, so what do you think? As they kind of look around. He goes, well, you should really repaint the outside. Looking a little dingy. And the two of them are just like, Mel looks at Jack like, I am, like, without words. She's looking at him like, I am so sorry he's an ass. Like, seriously, like that. And Jack's like, thanks for the tip. And he's like, oh, you're welcome. Like, I've just done you a favor. So Jack's like, so what brings you to town, Dad? He goes, oh, just checking in. He's like, really? Because I've lived here for over 7 years and you've never checked in. Like, I can't believe in 7 years he's never been there. I don't know if the mom's ever been there, but clearly the dad has never been there. And the dad is like, I'm also here to see your sister. He goes, yeah, well, that tracks. He goes, your mother and we just don't understand. He looks at Mel to kind of explain where he's coming from. He's like, she had a prestigious job and then suddenly up and quit. And Jack's like, well, sometimes people need to change, I guess. And the dad is like, your mother will be crushed if she doesn't come back to Sacramento. And then he looks again at Mel to give further explanation. It's like, we used to have dinner 2, 3 times a week. I don't know, without her visits, the house is empty. And she's like, oh. And Mel's like, well, you're going to have grandkids running around soon, so. And Jack gives her a look, and she's just sweet as pie, just smiling like, of course. The future. And Jack gives her a look like, what words just came out of your mouth?
Exactly. Why did you say that?
What? And he looks at her and she looks at him. As she's looking at him, because she didn't get the hint soon enough.
Exactly.
She's like, the twins. And he's like, you're pregnant with twins? And she goes, I'm not pregnant with twins. Like, she didn't want to say. And she's looking at him and he's giving her a look. And as she's like, the words came out as she wanted to suck them right back in. She's like, Charmaine. And he looks at Jackie and goes, you got Charmaine pregnant? And the look on her face is like, oh my, squint the eyes, hold their breath. Oh my. And Jack is like, he's like, why don't you grab a booth and I'll get some coffee?
Oh boy.
And Mel just turns around like, oh my God.
She
goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought your parents knew. And he's like, no, I wasn't that psyched on telling them. Like, his ex-girlfriend, like, if Mel was pregnant, like, once they're okay, he'll be running to tell everybody. But Charmaine, like, not as happy. Not so happy about that one. And he's like, well, we've been busy. I got shot. You got pregnant. And she's like, that's not funny. I feel sick. Like, she feels so bad. And he goes, don't worry about it. I can handle my dad. She goes, you sure you don't want me to stay and, like, I don't know, help smooth things over or
I think you've
something?
done enough damage,
Yeah,
Smell.
she's like, no, it's fine. She goes, no, I can. And he's like, it's fine, really. He goes, he was going to find out at some point anyway. She goes, yeah, but, and he leans over and he gives her a kiss. She's like, I love you. It's like, I love you too. And she's like, oh, jeez. She just like leaks out of there. She's like, just get me out of here.
Damage
So,
done.
oh, the damage, yeah, the damage is done. Not much you could do about it. The cat is now out of the bag. And now, Lucy, you got some splaining to do. So now we're in a park where the many, many locations that the bakery truck sets up shop. And there's cute because there's a bunch of tables with umbrellas and everything. And it's Doc and Denny. And Doc is like, I'm sorry that we, didn't get a chance to talk yesterday. He goes, oh, I totally understand. You need to take care of your wife. He's like, I didn't want you to think I was upset with you. And he goes, oh, not at all. You seem like a pretty straightforward guy. And he's like, yeah. He goes, I sort of dropped a bomb on your lap. And he goes, woo, two if you count me. Because he had no idea that the woman, that Denny's grandmother was alive, which, I mean, he thought she died 40 years ago. And now to find out not only was she alive, but got
She lied
you know,
about being pregnant.
yep, lied about being pregnant. He goes, I definitely count you. And he's like, you know what? I don't understand why Rose's sister lied to me, because it was the sister that told him that she was dead. She told me that Rose had passed away. He goes, I asked the same question, but Grandma wouldn't talk about it. He goes, did she say anything? Anything about us? And he goes, that you met in college, you broke up when you went to med school. He goes, well, no. Actually, she broke up with me. She sent me a letter telling me she had met someone else, and that was the last I heard of her. He goes, well, I'm pretty sure she was pregnant with my dad. He goes, oh, I don't know what to do. And he's just like, why wouldn't she tell me? And Denny, in whatever information he got from his grandmother, he's like, maybe she didn't want to get in the way of you becoming a doctor. And Denny's like, I was here a few weeks ago and I found out your wife was in the hospital. I left because I didn't want to burden you. And I get that from my grandma. He's like, what made you return? He goes, well, I'm taking a year off from college to travel, and I wanted to meet you before I left the country. He goes, I called the hospital and they said your wife was no longer a patient, so I hope that was okay. And he goes, without a doubt, I'm really glad you came back. And just as they're chatting, Lizzie walks up with some sweet treats, and she's like, Aunt Connie thought you guys might like these. And Doc's like, oh. And he goes, Lizzie, this is my grandson, Denny. A nice introduction. Denny, this is the lovely Lizzie. He goes, hey. She's like, hi.
Well, it's funny how he accepts Denny without even any proof.
Well, he had, remember, Denny had the picture when he first walked up, because he said,
true,
you know, you wouldn't believe me.
Right. Yeah,
it's like, who else, how would he have that picture?
That's true.
And if that's his grandmother, I mean, granted, he didn't need him to do DNA, but, and Doc gets a phone call and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry to cut this short. He's like, but do you mind sticking around? We can have dinner. And he goes, yeah, that'd be great. And he goes, in the meantime, maybe Lizzie can show you around. And Lizzie's like, I would, but I'm not done with work. And Connie in the background, she's like, oh, go ahead, Lizzie. We're not that busy.
Connie can hear. I swear that woman has the best ears.
She's like Ricky always said, she's like a tiny ninja. It's true.
Oh man, that woman can hear.
I know. She's great. So Lizzie's like, oh, okay. So and then he says, that woman has the hearing of a mouse-eared bat. See, everybody knows.
She does.
So Lizzie's like, so do you want to hang out? And Denny's like, sure. And Doc's like, excellent. He goes, okay, I'll call you later. You kids have fun. He's like, so what do you feel like doing? He goes, would you be willing to wear a life jacket? And Lizzie kind of looks at him like, okay. So now we're back at the clinic. And it looks like some lovely lady is in labor. And Cameron is ready to catch. And, okay, I've always had a problem with this. And maybe that's The Office. Before, they had the table where if you were getting ready to have a baby and your legs were up in the air, that was the direction of the waiting room. But it looks like they've moved the table. So now the office where Mel and Doc or whoever would come in through, that's where they would come in. So that's where the baby catching area is aimed. So it's much better because it just seems like you open the doors to the lobby and everybody gets to see all your lady bits. Like that would be Because in the beginning and early episodes, I'm like, why would you have the examination table in that direction? That makes like, hello, people, come on now. So Mel peeks in, and she's seeing what Cameron needs. He needs some help, and he's like, I'll be right back. And he comes in the office, and he's like, oh, am I happy to see you? He goes, female, 25 years of age, unknown gestation, currently 8 centimeters dilated. He goes, okay, how long has she been in labor for? He goes, I have no idea. They just got here. He goes, have you delivered many babies before? And he goes, not since I was an intern. And he's very wary. He's like, thank God you're here. like this is her jam. Let her take the lead. And so she's like, okay, is there a chart? She goes, there's no reported care. Something about living in a camper outside of town. And she doesn't have insurance. And the guy is like, can we get some help in here? And so Mel walks right up to her, and she's like, hi there. He goes, my name is Mel Monroe. I'm a nurse and midwife, and I'm here to help you deliver your baby. And she's like, okay. She goes, what's your name? She goes, Leanne Carter. Leanne, nice to meet you. Do you mind if I take a look? It's like, okay, no problem, because I'm her husband, Ben. She says she's having trouble breathing. She's like, okay, well, your pulse is solid. It's probably the pain. Sometimes pain can make you panic, and so that's why your breathing's a little shallow. And he goes, Leanne, I'm going to need you to start taking some slow, deep breaths, okay? She goes, I can't. It hurts. And she's like, I know it does, honey, but okay, just watch me. So she's showing her how to take a deep breath and blow it out. And he goes, excellent. You've got this. And he goes, okay, I'm going to take a look. And so Mel examines her, and she's like 10 centimeters dilated and fully effaced. Okay, it's time to start pushing. And she's like, the husband's like, what do you want me to do? And the girl, the woman yells, hold my damn hand. And Mel's like, yeah, I just do what she says. She's all right, on your next contraction, I want you to give me a big push.
At least he didn't faint.
Yeah. So here it comes. And so she's yelling, and they're gonna try and deliver these babies. So now we're back at Jack's bar, and Sam asked Jack, oh, this conversation, it's like pure dread.
Yeah.
And he's like, and you're sure the twins are definitely yours? It's a great question. It's a great question. And I mean, yeah. Jack is like, yeah. And he's like, are you gonna marry her? And he's like, no, she just got married to somebody else. Like who is this woman? She's like 2 months, 3 months pregnant, and she's already met and married someone else. Like, ew. Like, that's so weird, right? And the dad is like, so you're going to let another man raise your children? He goes, no, we're going to co-parent. He goes, so what's that supposed to mean? The kids are going to go back and forth between me and Charmaine. He goes, well, that doesn't sound fair. He goes, well, no, it's not ideal, but, I want to be in their life. So he goes, just not full time. And he's like, if it was up to me, I'd be with him 24/7. He goes, well, then you shouldn't have let Charmaine marry somebody else. He goes, Dad, I'm not in love with her. Not all marriages are based on love. And he goes, well, are you talking about you and Mom? And he's like, of course not. He goes, you should have married Charmaine when you had the chance. And he's like, I'm sorry, but I'm entering into a loveless marriage was not the answer. And he goes, in life, you don't always get what you want. And he's indignant about it. Like, yeah. Sam is just like Jack, he already feels like Jack is a big disappointment.
Exactly.
He didn't go to college. He went into the Marines. He wouldn't have picked that for him. And it's like, he can't do anything right.
He opens a bar.
Yeah, and he opens a bar. It's like in his eyes, he can't do anything right. And he says, and for the record, Sheridan's finish what they start. And he gets all pissy, and he gets up and he starts to walk away. And he goes, where are you going? He goes, to cool off. And he walks out. And Jack's
you see, the thing is, Jack's father is an upper middle class white man. All his other children have achieved what they're supposed to achieve.
Yeah.
And Jack, unfortunately, has decided to go blue collar on him.
And he's the only son. So he put different expectations on him. Exactly. And he apparently, in his eyes, have failed miserably.
Oh, that's an understatement.
Yeah. So now we're at the lake, and Denny and Lizzie are in one of those little paddle boats, taking pictures and laughing. And she's like, we barely left the shore. And he goes, that's because you're not pedaling. He goes, well, this was your idea. If it were up to me, we'd be eating fries right now. He goes, okay, if we make it to the buoy and back, I'll buy you all the fries you can eat.
This
She's like,
girl loves junk food.
she loves to eat. Good for
Yes.
her,
Between the candy and the junk food, the girl is,
right?
yeah. I had an aunt like that who could eat anything and still was a size 0.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So Denny's like, okay, random question for you. If you had to pick between 24 hours of sunlight or 24 hours of moonlight, what would you pick? She's like, I'm a night owl. I pick moonlight. What about you? And he's like, same. He's like, really? He's like, yeah. He goes, my first year of college, I never scheduled a class before noon. Luckily, sometimes I got, and she's like, luckily, sometimes I got stuck opening. He goes, we're supposed to open at 6, but I'm always late. He goes, you ever get in trouble? He goes, no, people around here are pretty cool. So far, no one's complained.
She knows
Nice.
us.
Yeah. And he's like, well, so far, everyone I've met has been like super nice. She's like, so you think I'm nice? And he's like, well, you don't know me and you offered to show me around. That's pretty nice. Yeah, I figured it'd be better than working. So you'd rather pedal boat with a stranger than work? He goes, well, it depends on who the stranger is. If he's a serial killer, then no. He goes, okay, so to be clear, you're not a serial killer. Correct. Anything else I should know? I goes, not in the moment. And he's like, well, anything else I should know? She goes, no, not really. Right now we're strangers. But it's okay. So it's a really nice picture of the lake. Other people are paddle boating and pedal boating. So we're back at Jack's bar, and Jack is filling up somebody's coffee, and Hope walks in, and he goes, hey there, stranger. He's like, hey there, stranger. Good to see you up and Adam. She's taking it very slow. She may be up, well, she says, but I don't know about Adam. She's coffee, please. And he's like, sure. He's like, did you get the flowers that we sent? And she's like, yes. She goes, I don't recall what kind. He's like, still. He's like, you look great. He goes, you look a lot better than you did in the hospital. She goes, how would you know that? And he goes, well, Mel and I visited you more than once. She's like, how much do I owe you? He goes, come on, your money's no good here. He goes, yeah, that's a funny way to run a business. And so you hear Muriel talking, and he's looking at Hope like, yeah, she's not back. She's not back. So you hear Muriel, and she's like, you're going to be Kate in Taming of the Shrew. You know, my off-Broadway Kate garnered lots of praise. And he goes, yeah, that was 30 years ago. He goes, act your age. He goes, well, like Joan Collins, I believe that age is just a number. And I believe I'll win the lottery. We all have our fantasies. And so Hope is like, so whose team am I on? And they're like, oh, I think it's Liddy says, you can be on my team. And Joellen's like, she starts to like grab the cards and she's going to shuffle them. And Connie's like, can I help you with that? And she's like, just give me a minute. I'm like, okay, no problem. And they're watching her very closely. And then Tara shows up and sits down. And she's like, hi. And Hope is like, what are you doing here? Very rudely. And Tara's like, And then Joellen's like, we invited Tara to be part of the group. She goes, she plays cards and her cross stitch is impeccable. And Hope is kind of like, And then she's so mean. She's like, why would you ever want to hang around a bunch of old ladies? Mm-hmm. And everybody's looking at her like, you shouldn't have said that, Hope. Come on. Mm-hmm. And everybody's looking at her funny. And she's like, what? It's just a question. Yeah. And Tara's like, being with you makes me feel closer to my mom. And I miss her a lot. And Joellen's like, we all miss her. And we're just happy to be spending time with you. So everybody else is very welcoming. And then Hope kind of blurts out. She goes, see, this is why I didn't want to come today. One wrong question and we're all going to be crying about Lily. I told Vernon I wasn't ready to go out, and he didn't listen to me. Boy, talk about mood killer. Like everybody's kind of looking at each other. And Tara, she's like, Tara, I'm sorry if you feel like I was being rude. It was not my intention. And she starts to cry. And she's like, no, it's okay. She goes, let's just play. And everybody's like, yeah, let's play. She goes, no, I want to go home. And Joellen gets up and walks over to Hope. And Tara's like, you know, I shouldn't have come. And they're all being very nice. I'm like, no, it's okay. It's okay. So, Preacher.
I love this. I love this scene.
Oh, my God. So, remember, Preacher left because he wants to go to his veterans group. Suggested that, you know, they always give you lots of suggestions of things that you should do. Get you out of your comfort zone. Try something new. Challenge yourself. You know, all these things that help with your stress and your anxiety. And since Christopher got kidnapped. And so, you know, one of the things was this Aikido class. It's kind of like jiu-jitsu and all of that karate and stuff. And he shows up, and he's like 6'5", and everybody in the class is like 12. So he walks in, he's late, of course, and he just kind of looks at the group. They all turn around and look at him. So she turns around, and he's like, you won't know if you like it unless you try. And he goes, I think I'm in the wrong class. She's like, this class is for beginners. He's like, okay then. Drops his bag, takes off his shoes, and goes to find a spot. She's like, now let's begin. And they do the bow, and he's just going to follow along. He's just trying to keep up with these kids that are like 10, 11, 12 years old. I mean, they're like half his size. She goes, Henry, you'll be demonstrating for preacher. He goes, why do I get the old guy? And she's like, Henry. He goes, fine. She's like, thank you. He goes, okay, so how does all this all work, huh? And he grabs preacher's hand, twists it. Dude is down on his knees and face down on the mat. And he's like, this class is only an hour, right? And she nods to him, which is so funny.
And as you pointed out, this is his real wife in real life.
Yes, in real life, that is his wife. They're married. They've got 2 daughters. I think the daughters are like 10 and 11 or 8 and 10 or something. Little girls, 2 little girls. And she's an actress too, obviously. She's primarily, they work, because they're both from Canada. Like, they actually live in Canada. Mostly Canadian things. So they do primarily stuff in Canada. But yeah, it's just weird how this is the second husband and wife team on the show, because originally Paige's husband was cast as her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And then they switched him out for someone else. But yeah, I guess if you try out for the part and get picked, then you get to work with your significant other. Kind of interesting. So we're back at the clinic.
The chemistry's already there.
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, I think that, everybody kind of sees preacher in a certain way, and then to find out that's his wife, it's a weird thing. It's like they're already married, but then he's meeting her for the first time. It's a weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're back at the clinic, and they're attempting to deliver this woman's baby, and Mel is like looking a little worried. Cameron's looking a little worried, and the husband is like, what's wrong? And Mel's like, sometimes babies are just a little bit shy. She goes, it's all right. She goes, one more big push. And she's like, I can't, I'm too tired. She's like, look at me. She's like, just one more. And then she pushes, and they push the baby out. He goes, okay. And so Mel takes the baby, and the husband's like, it's a girl. And she's like, okay. And the woman's like, why is she not crying? And there's very like sad music. And Cameron's looking at Mel. Mel's shaking her head no. And the husband's like, do something.
Yeah, this is a very intense time. And I've been in this situation, and it is not a good situation, because literally everybody's holding their breath at this point.
Yeah.
As it is the most nerve-wracking, because in the back of your mind, you're going, please, God, please, just make this child breathe.
Yeah.
Just make this child breathe.
And so Cameron grabs some equipment. He's grabbing oxygen. He's like, they're doing everything again. Mel's doing everything that she's supposed to do. They're putting oxygen on the baby. And the wife is yelling, why isn't she breathing? And Cameron's like clamping, and the woman's crying. He's like cutting, and they're doing CPR. He's like, create a central line. He goes to get an IV bag, and Mel's yelling, come on. Now, Mel's been through this. She had a stillborn. So this is even more heartbreaking, because if this baby doesn't live, it's like Mel reliving it. And so they're doing all the things, all the interventions that they can do. More CPR, more air, probably epi, because that's what they always yell when someone flatlines. They get an epi. And Mel's still trying. She's still doing compressions. And Cameron is just standing there, and he's like, stop compressions. And Mel looks up at him with these sad eyes. And he's like, marking time of death as. And the woman yells no, and she's sobbing. And then all of a sudden, the woman starts yelling like more contractions are coming. And the husband's like, what's happening? And Mel's like, another baby is coming. They didn't even know. They didn't know they were having twins.
Yeah.
And so now they're preparing for a second baby. So she hands off the first baby to Cameron, who puts the baby in the little bassinet thing. So now we're back at Jack's bar, and Jack is in the kitchen flipping some burgers. Because remember, he's in charge of cooking. Because...
Oh, God.
I know, because the grease fire of 2012, because Preacher is learning Aikido from a 12-year-old. He's a little preoccupied.
And kicking his butt too.
Right? Getting his butt kicked. So Brie is in the room with Brady sitting next to him, and she calls Jack and she's like, well, I'm in his room. And she's trying to be quiet. She's like, but he's still unconscious. And he's like, okay. He goes, how did it go with Dad? She goes, did you find out why he's here? He goes, yeah. He's like, yeah, they want to know when you're coming home. And Bree's like, oh my God, are you kidding? His mom's using Dad to do her dirty work. She's been begging me about coming back to Sacramento for weeks. He goes, well, she wants to know. She goes, well, I'm an adult. She doesn't need to know everything I'm doing. He goes, all right, well, you can tell Dad that yourself when you see him next. He goes, because we're no longer on speaking terms. And he goes, already? He goes, yeah, it took less than 10 minutes. I think that might be an all-time record.
I don't mean to laugh because I know how poor Jack feels.
God, so bad.
Oh, my God. I love my parents, but oh, my God.
I know, right? So she's like, well, as soon as I talk to Brady, I'll deal with Dad for you, okay? She goes, if you don't, I'm going to invite Mom up for a visit. He's like, you wouldn't. He's like, bye. So now we're back at Jack's bar, and Ricky is working, and he is overlooking Lizzie sitting with Denny at a table sort of on the patio area. And Hannah, we love Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
Hannah comes over to Ricky, and he goes, hey, who's that guy with your girlfriend? And he's like, yeah, she's not my girlfriend. She's like, did I miss something? And he's like, yeah, we sort of broke up. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it sucks, but it was kind of my fault. And Jack is like, it's totally your fault. He goes, thanks, Jack. He's like, you're welcome. Gives him a snide look. And Hannah's like, well, if it was your fault, why don't you go fix it? And he's like, yeah, she's on a date with somebody else. He goes, oh, quit being a wuss. Women want someone who'll fight for them. He goes, if you want her back, make her an offer she can't refuse.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, wasn't that a line from The Godfather? Jack says that. And Hannah's like, yeah. She goes, but it works. Gives him a little eyebrow. Little raised eyebrows. And then you see a Marine guy walk in the door, and he goes, Mr. Sutter? And he goes, oh, yeah, Staff Sergeant Gomez? And three Marine people walk in. He goes, I thought we should talk. And he goes, tell me I got into the officer candidate course. He goes, sorry, I still don't have any openings. And he goes, so now what? And he goes, maybe I should reconsider and join the Navy. He goes, I mean, you still get into the Raiders as a doc. And he goes, well, if I were you, I'd sign a general contract. Get your basic out of the way while you wait for a spot at Quantico. And he looks over at Lizzie, who's not paying attention to him at all. And he goes, if I do that, when would I leave for boot camp? And he goes, Phase 1, MCRD, San Diego, starts in less than 2 weeks. He goes, can I think about it? He's like, absolutely, but a good soldier follows his gut, takes action. So he kind of nods to him. Lizzie kind of looks over, but does that, how would you describe that look? Like, I see you, but I don't want to see you?
Mm-hmm. Yep. She's being a woman, you know.
So now we're back at the clinic, and the couple are now holding a baby who's fine. This baby's fine. Mm-hmm. And Mel comes in, and she kind of holds her stomach as she walks up to them. She goes, the ambulance is on its way. And the woman looks over at the other baby. She's like, can I hold her sister? And Mel's like, of course. So Mel picks up the baby. She hands the second baby to the husband, and the woman reaches out and takes the first baby from Mel. And she's like, my sweet Daisy. And the husband's like, so what happens when we go to the hospital? And Mel, because she's been through it and because she knows, she's like, an OBGYN will check on Mom, and a pediatrician will examine Iris. So they named the girls Daisy and Iris for flowers. It's very cute. Mm-hmm. You'll also meet with a social worker who will register the stillbirth and counsel you on end-of-life planning. And the woman kind of looks at the baby, and Mel just is like, I'm so very sorry for your loss. And the woman's like, you did everything you could. Mm. So Mel looks like she's about ready to cry, and she's like, I'm going to let you two have some time, okay? And she walks out.
Yeah, but she's about to fall apart.
Yeah, and she closes the doors, and like basically bottom lip is quivering, and she starts to cry, but she's trying to hold it in because she doesn't want them to hear her.
Because this is her first baby death since
her own.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back at Preacher's Aikido class, and she's like, thank you, Henry. He goes, you look familiar. He goes, have you ever used a headhunting service? Like, no. Oh, that's my other job. I teach Aikido between client meetings. He goes, oh, sounds like you got a tough schedule. He goes, well, it's my own fault. I love teaching and I love recruiting. I couldn't pick between the two. He goes, well, if you enjoy what you do, then it doesn't feel like work. She's like, exactly. He goes, so is this your first class? He goes, well, what gave it away? He goes, my outfit or the fact that a 13-year-old dropped me? He goes, well, Aikido isn't age and size, nothing to do with it. He goes, well, that was obvious. He goes, you'll learn to be successful. Your inner energy must be harmonious with your outer self. He goes, yeah, well, I was a Marine, so harmony wasn't exactly my thing. He goes, well, in Aikido might be a welcome challenge. He goes, the class on Friday is mostly adults. I hope to see you again, preacher.
Why didn't she tell him that to begin with?
Well, I think
Instead
she
of
wanted to see if he would show up. And then as she walks away, she's looking back at him.
She made the man humiliate himself with a 12-year-old.
Well, sometimes people need to be knocked down a peg. Maybe, and she didn't know that that's not preacher, but most people, you know, the ego gets in the way, and so
whatever.
So Brie is sitting by Brady's bedside with her sort of head in her hand, maybe, you know, just being there. Yes, contemplating her life choices. Yeah. And just as Brady is starting to wake up, and he reaches over to touch her hand, and she's like, oh. And he's like, Brie. And she's like, hi. Like, so glad that he's okay. And he, like, holds on to her, and she's holding on to him. He says, what are you doing here? She's wiping tears. And she goes, Jack's memory came back. He knows you didn't shoot him. And he's like, the relief on his face and the grunting because it hurts where he got stabbed, but relief. Definite relief. And he's like, I told you I was framed. She's like, I know, and I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. It's just, I've been burned in the past, and I have a really hard time trusting people. And he's like, you don't need to explain yourself. He goes, no, I do, because I haven't been honest with you. And he's like, what do you mean? She's like, you remember when you told me you were falling in love with me? And he's like, yeah. She goes, I didn't say anything because I was too afraid to tell you that I was already in love with you. And she's like crying. She goes, then last night happened, and I didn't think I'd ever get a chance. And he's like, hey, you don't need to cry. He's like, I'm right here, okay? Everything's going to be all right. And she gets up and she goes, I'm going to get you home. She gets really close to him. She's like, I promise. She's like, I love you. That's very intense. So Jack is clearing some tables outside of Jack's bar and the patio, sort of like the outside area next to the river. And he's like, hey. And she's like, hey. He's like, I just wanted to call and find out how things were going with your dad. And he's like, he lectured me on the importance of a nuclear family. She goes, oh, so it was bad. He's like, yeah, well, he walked out in the middle of the conversation. Joellen said he's leaving town in the morning. She's like, oh. He goes, it's going to be really hard to patch things up once he's back in Sacramento. He goes, yeah, but I'm not the problem. He goes, no. He goes, babe, I didn't mean it like that. He goes, do you want to have a relationship with him? And he's like, it's going to be like this. No, I don't think so. And she's like, well, what if you could patch things up? And he's now sitting on one of the Adirondack chairs that faces the river. Another iconic picture. They use a lot of him on the phone for like different things. It's just funny how they screenshot like all these iconic shots, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's a great picture. It's like, no, they didn't pose for it. That's just part of the show. Sorry. So he's like, he goes, you know, if I can't have a relationship with my own father, what the heck kind of a dad am I going to be? And he goes, no matter what happens with Sam, you're going to be an incredible father. I mean, Mel is very encouraging because she knows what kind of a person he is. So that would show you what kind of a father he's going to be. And she's like, this is about what you want from him. He's like, a little respect would be nice. She goes, well, then go tell him that. And he goes, you know, if he doesn't come around then, well, at least you know you tried. He's like, well, he's pretty stubborn. He goes, oh, so it's genetic. And they both chuckle. He's like, yeah, you're funny. He goes, all right, look, I have to give it one more shot, but after that, I think I'm done. She goes, well, that's fair enough. So he goes, are you okay? How was your day? She tries to find the positive. She goes, it's good. I delivered a baby. And he's like, aw. He goes, you don't sound very excited. No, she's like, I'm just tired. He goes, okay, well, when you get home from Hope's, try and get some rest. She's like, yeah, I'll do that. She goes, anyway, I love you. He says, I love you too. Now the I love yous just come so freely. Before, you couldn't have drug it out of them. I mean, he was saying it, but she was like, yeah, not going there. But now it's like, I love you, I love you, I love you. So now he's like, okay, how am I going to talk to my dad? Beautiful scenery shot of the Virgin River. And Hope is like, I've lost my damn mind. He goes, it's like my mouth is no longer connected to my brain. This is, remember, Mel said she was going to stop by and see Hope? Well, now she's explaining to Hope what happened. He goes, words come out before I even have a chance to think about what I'm saying. She's really struggling. I mean, just like her whole posture, her words don't flow very easily. It's like she's struggling sometimes to find the words. She even looks tired and disheveled and kind of out of it. So it's like her whole demeanor is off.
Yep.
And Mel's like, Hope, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. She's like, I don't understand what's happening. She goes, well, the TBIs, sights, sounds, and people can all trigger really strong emotional responses. She goes, I saw Tara this morning. She's like, I made her really uncomfortable. And Mel's like, it's okay. You haven't had much time to process your grief over Lily. She goes, that is no excuse. I was downright unsocial. And Mel's like, listen, everybody knows what you're going through and no one is judging you. She goes, yeah, but I'm judging me. And she's like, how long is this going to last? And Mel's like, they don't know. But with time and therapy, you'll get better.
That is not something she wants to hear.
Yeah, and Hope's like, so until then, I should just crawl under a rock. And Mel's like, no, it's not like flipping a switch. She goes, the process is just going to be gradual. And Hope's like crying. She's like, I can't do this. And Mel's like, yes, you can. You can. She goes, you're one of the strongest people I know and that I've ever met in my life. And she looks at Mel with like pleading eyes as she's crying, like, please, please, Mel, help me get my life back. Like, there's very few people that she probably feels like she could ask. Like, Mel always seems to be close enough to people, but just far enough away. You know, like Lily wouldn't have asked one of her friends about certain things, but she felt close enough to Mel, but doesn't have that like long history. So it's like,
I think it's also the fact that they feel that Mel will not judge them.
True.
Because that's the thing that's going on here. When you're helpless, you don't
want to be judged.
You don't want to be judged. You just want the help that you need, and you want to you want to move forward. Right. You don't a coulda, woulda, should you, no judgment call,
or do this, do that. Yeah.
Right. There's none of that. So that's the thing. I think that's why Mel seems to.
But I think because also, and that for that reason, because they don't have this long history, Mel just comes into it with like fresh eyes.
Yeah.
But cares enough. She cares for everybody, and her empathy is so big that she's the perfect person for this. She can look at it objectively, but also subjectively. She cares enough to say, I can help you with this, or this is what you need to do, or what can I do for you? Like, she's just that person.
Yeah.
And of course she agrees. Yeah, she'll help her in whatever way. I mean, she doesn't even know what she can do, but she'll figure it out, right? She'll figure it out. So Jack is able to track down Sam, his dad. I think this is a little seating area off the river near the B&B. And he sees Jack coming, and he's like, Joellen said I'd find you here. And he's just kind of standing there. He's like, can I sit? Sam motions like, yeah. Fortunately, there's 2 chairs. How nice. How convenient.
Yes, how convenient.
They just kind of sit there. And Jack's like, look, I know you don't approve of my choices. It's like, this is something he probably should have done 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but he didn't. And unfortunately, here we are.
Well, I think also 10 years ago, 20 years ago, he wasn't mature enough to do that with his father. That's the thing.
When he wasn't in a place where he could have this conversation.
Yeah,
because he was, I think even a year ago, he was angry, and he was just going to be angry and stay angry. But, Mel has that effect on people. She cracks them open and lets all that ooey gooey inside spill out and helps them find their heart.
Well, lets them think with their mind instead of their emotion, because that's the problem. Is one tends to leak into the other, and then it becomes really messy. So that's the problem there.
So Jack is like, it shouldn't mean that we can't have a civil conversation just because they don't agree.
To agree to disagree.
Right. And the dad, of course, because he thinks that Jack should live his life just like he did. You do what you gotta do, right? And that's his philosophy. He goes, I just don't understand why you always have to go against the grain.
God.
And it's not the grain, it's his grain. That's the difference. It's his grain.
Yeah.
And Jack is like, what does that mean? And the dad is like, you had a full academic scholarship at Berkeley, which means if he had that means Jack's we know this. We already knew it. Yeah. He's a really smart guy.
He is. That's why I said his father is an upper middle class man.
Yep.
Who basically all his children have followed in a certain footsteps.
And he approved.
And here comes Jack. And as you pointed out, the only son, because Adam is no longer there.
Yep.
And his expectations for Jack are enormous.
Yeah, double because Adam's not there. He's like, he's going to take on Adam's
Adams plus himself.
Yeah.
And so the fact that Jack Lee kicked that whole premise and that whole expectation that he had for Jack down the drain is just, he felt like the father felt like he hadn't done his job,
Yeah.
you know. And at the same
Like
time,
he
Jack
failed just as much as Jack's
right,
failing him. He failed Jack because he didn't
right,
make
and
him
Jack
do it right.
right, and Jack felt that he needed to get out from under that because he couldn't live under that kind of pressure. You know, he had to find himself, and the military gave him that.
Exactly.
So you have two men who are as stubborn as hell,
Oh my
you
God.
know, just trying to find a middle ground, and that is not an easy middle ground to find.
No, there really isn't one. Because if no one bends, they're never going to find a common ground.
And you notice that Sheridans don't bend well, right?
No, they don't.
They don't bend well, even the women.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So he's like, you had a full academic scholarship to Berkeley and you threw it away to play soldier. And Jack is like, I wasn't playing anything. Like, that's the whole thing. Because it wasn't a choice that Sam would have made, it's the wrong choice. He can't even see the value. Even if he doesn't agree, he doesn't see the value in the choice.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, I enlisted to serve my country. He goes, well, you could have at least gone back to school after your tour ended. You could have become something. He goes, I did become something. I own my own business. He goes, you have a brilliant mind and you're wasting it serving drinks. He goes, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. He goes, I'm living the life I want. I don't know why you can't understand that.
Exactly. You see the difference in expectations?
He thinks he should be doing something very, very specific. And because it's he's not doing that, then it's wrong.
Exactly. Right.
Because it's not wrong. It's different.
Different. And that's the thing. The thing about it is his idea of success is, you know, like what his sisters did. And the problem is that Jack didn't do as his sisters did. And that alone is where they're button heads.
Well, and even to the point that Brie is a lawyer, but because she chose to stay in Virgin River and quit and maybe just get a different kind, like, that's wrong too. Like, she actually did what they wanted her to do, but now she's not doing it the way they want her to do it. So she's still wrong. It's like, it's not your life, you know? Goodness. Oh, so he's like, I'm living the life that I want. I don't know why you can't understand that. And the dad, he's like, when I was growing up, my father insisted that I follow in his footsteps. If you didn't want to teach, why did you push back? That's Jack's like, you know, hey, you could have been me. You could have done what you wanted to do. And Sam's like, in those days, respecting your parents meant doing what you were told. And Jack's like, I enlisted because it was my dream, not because I didn't respect you. Like, Sam thinks that it was all a pushback on him and it literally nothing to do with him. And that's the part that he can't see. He thinks everything involves him. It didn't have anything to do with him. And Sam's like, I thought you enlisted to get back at me. And Jack's like, back at you for what? We never agreed on anything. And he's like, my decision had nothing to do with you. I wanted to be a Marine since I was a kid. Like, did they not listen to him when he was young? Did they not hear him?
Well, I think the whole trauma with Adam really mucked up his parents.
Yeah.
Because
for sure.
I think that changed the whole dynamics of that whole
whole family. Absolutely.
You know, and so I think his father basically said, okay, I have lost a son. And this is the son I am going to put all my emphasis on. And this is what he's going to be.
And now he's not choosing that.
Right. And Jack turned out to be a really smart kid. Yeah. But the thing about it is your children are not your own. You bring them into the world.
You can't live vicariously through them if they don't, you know.
And especially if they unfortunately have the same drive and the same stubbornness as you do.
Oh, yes.
They are not going to go the path you want once they become a legal age to do what they want to do.
It's genetic.
Oh, honey, yes. And genetics is a bitch, as you and I are perfectly aware of.
Yeah. So he's like, son, at 18, you didn't have the experience to understand consequences. So he's trying to explain to him that you didn't know what you were doing and you just went all half-cocked and picked whatever, and you picked wrong. Like, in his mind, you didn't know enough to pick the right thing, so that's what you picked, and here we are. And the dad is like, I was trying to protect you. And Jack's like, I didn't need protecting, I needed support. And he goes, well, my job was to make sure that you didn't get killed. And he goes, so when you have your own kids, He goes, my job was to make sure you didn't ruin your life.
Hmm.
When you have your own kids, you'll understand, which is coming because Charmaine and now Mel secretly. And he goes, when I have my own kids, I will support them no matter what. And Sam is like, so you can honestly say that you're satisfied with your life here? And Jack's like, yeah, I can. And I wish that you could accept that. There's more than one way to live a life. And Sam's like, yeah, well, you're not the first person to tell me that. He goes, well, that might be something to think about. And the dad's like, okay, I hear you. And Jack's like, but do you understand? He goes, I'm trying. And that's all he can do is try. So it's sunset. And Doc and Denny are at Jack's bar. They're sitting at the bar. And he's like, and I would like you to meet my wife, Hope. Lizzie said that she has a big personality, and Doc's laughing. He goes, oh, yeah, she's a character. He goes, but she's got the biggest heart you can imagine. And Denny's like, do you think she'd be okay with me being here? And he's like, oh, of course. He goes, as a matter of fact, if you wanted to stay around Virgin River for a little while, I mean, we could get to know each other better. And Denny's like, really? He goes, well, yeah, I mean, if that's something you want. And he goes, yeah, I'd really like that. He goes, do you need to run that by your parents? He goes, well, actually, my mother died when I was a baby. He goes, oh, I'm sorry. He goes, thanks, but my dad and my grandma raised me. And he goes, are you close with them? To my grandma? Yeah. Now, keep in mind, Doc has not asked
about his son.
About a son that he has. He's been focusing on the woman and the grandson, but he hasn't. I think he's afraid. Like, oh, maybe he doesn't want to see me, or maybe he doesn't want to talk to me, or maybe, you know, he's mad and that his mother didn't tell me. You know, who knows? Like, who knows? Yeah. But now it's going to come up. And Doc's like, and your dad? And Denny's like, best friends. He goes, oh. He goes, that's wonderful. He goes, it sounds like he takes after Rose and not me. And he goes, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, Rose was, you know, sweet as pie. He goes, but I'm what some people call a curmudgeon. And he thinks that's funny. He goes, well, you seem perfectly nice to me. And then Doc is like, he's very tentative, but he's going to go for it. He's like, well, maybe this is too soon. Maybe it's just too forward. But do you think your dad might want to meet me? And Denny's like, he can't. He goes, yep, I understand. No problem. I get it. And Doc's like, if he wanted to see me, he probably would have come with you. Just assuming, you know. And Denny's like, no, it's not that. He's like, he died last month.
Which now
Doc's
explains.
Like, oh, God. So close. So close. Oh, my gosh. So close. So now we are at the cabin, and Mel is cutting vegetables. Now, we mentioned before that we never see Mel cook.
That's true.
Jack usually brings home food, brings food home from the bar, or they eat out, or they're just throwing something together, sandwiches or what have you, but you never see her cook. I don't remember if it was Alex Breckenridge or somebody else. I don't remember what it was, but they said, wouldn't it be funny if Mel did cook, but her food was bad? And like, wouldn't it be funny if like Jack pretended to eat it and like, that he's spitting it out on the side or hiding it on his plate or feeding it to the dog and the dog won't eat it or something, something like that it would be funny. Like that if she can't cook and like, that's why she's never cooking. And that's why usually he's cooking. I think that would be funny, which is really funny because Alex Breckenridge actually cooks very well. She's always
very good
on YouTube or Instagram cooking something or another. She's cooking all the time, and while they've been filming, they do the inappropriate cooking show. If you go on YouTube and look that up with Alex Breckenridge and Martin Henderson, and I think Zibby Allen's been there a couple times, where the three of them go to one of their apartments and cook something, and then they video it and put it up on YouTube. It is hilarious.
It is so hilarious.
Oh my gosh, it is so, so funny. The three of them, or just the two of them. And then they've done it a few times where he's in New Zealand and she's in Georgia.
Oh, those are even funnier because...
Oh my God. They're in their own kitchens and they, talk ahead of time to buy the right ingredients. And then they're walking through the step-by-step of how to make bread or whatever. Like, they made sourdough bread one time, and then he had some dessert from New Zealand that he was showing her how to make. And I mean, they haven't done one in a long time. And I know people have asked about it, but they were planning to do it this past, the end of this past season while they were filming, but they just got super busy and they were working ridiculous hours. They didn't get a chance.
Yeah.
So maybe next season, but oh my God, so hilarious. So funny. Yeah. Anyway, back to the story. So Mel's chopping vegetables. She's sort of like dazed, like she's not even really paying attention.
Well, she just lost the baby today.
Yeah.
As a client.
Yeah. She's just sort of deep in thought, contemplating, the day and how hard it was and whatever. And Jack shows up. He peeks around the corner and kind of pulls her out of it. And Sam's with him. And he's like, oh, hi. And he's like, oh, apologies for showing up unannounced. Seems like they've buried the hatchet. And thank goodness it wasn't in each other's skulls. Because, it could have been bad.
Yeah.
And Sam's like, Jack insisted me being here, that I wouldn't be an imposition. And she's like, absolutely not. We have plenty of food. And she's, oh, that's very kind of you. He says, I would like to wash my hands. And he points him to the bathroom. And Jack looks at her and she looks at him and she's like, what? And he's like, well, I guess things went well. And he goes, well, a lot better than this morning. She's like, I'm so sorry. He goes, no. It's okay. He goes, thanks to you, everything's out in the open. He goes, I think there's been a shift between us. She goes, does he know about my pregnancy? And he whispers, he goes, no. And she holds her mouth closed like, oh my gosh, I better not say anything. Covers her mouth and he goes, I think one pregnancy at a time is enough, don't you? And she's like, yeah. She goes, perfectly reasonable. I will not say anything. And he makes a little like you're going to lock your lips closed. And he's like, go and relax. And she's like, really? He's like, yeah, I'll finish prepping. She's like, oh, okay. Well, thank you. And she goes and sits down. And Sam comes out of the bathroom and he's like, I just got a text from Brie and she's just now leaving the hospital. He said, go ahead and eat and she'll get here as soon as she can. Now, if they're at the hospital, because there's no big hospital by them, it's at least an hour away, if not longer. So Jack's like, that's fine. We can put our food in the warmer. No problem. He goes, in the meantime, do you want some wine? And he goes, oh, does a bird have wings? So Jack and Mel are looking at each other like, okay, this is going okay.
Going good.
So Brie is leaving the hospital and she's heading to her car. And a voice from the side says, how's Brady doing? And she's like, excuse me? And it's Calvin. Now, she doesn't know Calvin.
Yeah, she doesn't know Calvin.
Calvin's like, I warned him something like this would happen. It's a shame, but prison is a dangerous place after all. And she's looking around like, uh-oh, what's this guy? Why is he coming over here? And he's standing between her and her car. So he's very intimidating.
Of course he is. And he knows that.
Yes, and he knows exactly how to do it with his southern accent and his very low voice and his smooth talking. Yeah, it's very intimidating. It's very unnerving. And she's like, my family's waiting for me, so. And he goes, this is only going to take a second. And she goes to go motion toward her car, and he literally steps in front of her, not letting her pass. And he gives her a smile, and he's like, I want you to tell your boyfriend to get Emerald Lumber's side business up and running. And she's like, he's incarcerated. He takes a deep breath, and he's like, look, just tell him Calvin says as long as he plays ball, everyone will be just fine, yourself included. And he gives another smile, and he goes, have a nice evening. And he hobbles away.
He's a son of a you-know-what.
Yep. And she gets in her car as fast as she can, and she gets in, and she locks the door. Takes a deep breath, oh my goodness. So now we're back at Mel's cabin.
And wait till Brie finds out this, because you threatening him is one thing. You threatening his woman, that's a whole different kettle of fish.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So Sam and Jack and Mel are sitting down at dinner. She goes, Mom wanted to hire a plumber, but no, Dad said he could fix it. He's like, wait a minute, do you even know how to fix a dishwasher? And Jack is like, no. And he's like, and 2 minutes in, the pipe breaks and the whole kitchen's flooded. And Sam's like, in my defense, the plumbing in that house is really old. And he goes, yeah, what did your mom say? She says, oh, she thought it was funny, eventually. So Sam is like, he's got to say something, and he doesn't want to say something, but he's got to say something. And he goes, about your mother. Deep breath. He goes, I was hoping to tell you and Brie together, but obviously that's not going to happen. He's like, tell us what? And he's like, this isn't ideal. And Mel's like, thinking, I'm out of place, I shouldn't be here. She goes, if you need some privacy, I can go outside. It's not like there's another room. I mean, it's a 1-room cabin.
Side of there, the bathroom.
Right? And Jack's like, no. He goes, whatever you got to say, you can say with Mel here. And he's like, well, in that case, and he takes a deep breath and he looks at Jack and he's like, your mother wants a divorce. And Jack looks at Sam and Sam picks up his wine glass and he cheers it up to him and he takes a sip.
God, love a duck.
And it's like, the end.
Mm, 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 mm.
It's like, what?
What the hell just happened there?
Seriously. Like, what did I miss? Unbelievable.
How do you tell your grown-ass children that you're about to get a divorce?
I mean, and it's like, what could have happened? I mean, they've been married forever. Because you figure Jack's at least 40.
40.
Probably 43.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do the math.
Yeah.
So.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, boy. Yeah. And I've heard stories like that where, people get divorced after.
Some people wait till after the kids are grown, maybe when
grown.
they get in college, but
their kids have been grown for a long time.
I mean, Brie's in her early 30s, so.
I mean, if you want your kids to wait till your kids are grown, you wait till the last one's in college and you go, okay, we're quit.
Right. But see, we will find out soon enough the reason behind that. I mean, everyone has their suspicions, and of course, it's obviously Sam did something because he seems to be in the show. Sam is this kind of person where the mom is like sweet and nice and loving and whatever, but in the books, it's the other way around. The mom isn't even around, and it's the dad that's around that's sweet and nice and caring and loving. So it's kind of weird how they totally changed the Sheridan original family.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of things they changed.
Yes, they did. Like I always say, it's inspired by, not based on.
Exactly.
And as long as you keep that in mind, people don't get mad that, oh, why did they do it this? And why is that person like that? It's like, because it's not supposed to be. Inspired by. So, but yeah, so there you go. Oh, my.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to another end of another episode.
Oh, my goodness. It was a good one. It wasn't, after so much happened in the last couple of episodes, it's kind of nice to have one that's a little bit calmer, because they get to be so
it feels
so
crazy. It feels like a hard chart, down and up and down.
Like a roller coaster ride. Jeez. So it's nice once in a while to have one that's just
it's just there.
It's just let's just get some information, let's check a few things out.
It's like catching your breath.
Yeah.
This one
gave us a chance to catch our breath because the next couple,
it's gonna be a doozy, people. Gonna be a doozy.
Yeah. Yep. It's a good season, though. Season 4 was a really good season. I think it's actually one of the more popular seasons of all of them. Although, until this last season came out, season 6, definitely number one in everyone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love season 6. Season 6 is one of my best. I love season 1.
Watching them fall in love is like the best.
Right. Yeah. I love the camaraderie. You see the personalities of everyone, and so it's nice. You get the introduction. It's just season 1 and season 6 are my 2 favorite seasons.
Oh yeah, I agree. Definitely. All right. Well, thanks again, ladies and gentlemen, for downloading and listening to our banter and shenanigans and comments and contemplations. We hope that you're enjoying it. Feel free to leave us a little note through our podcast if you feel the need. We like reviews are always nice. It helps us know that we're doing okay out there. So far, so good. So far, I think we're mildly entertaining. Let's put it that way. So
we're hanging in.
We're doing all right. I think we're doing all right. We still have, let's see, almost 30 episodes left. 30 plus episodes left. We're going to be here for a while. And by the time we finish all the seasons that have dropped, we'll only have to wait a couple of months for the next season to come out. So I don't know what we'll do in between. We'll have to figure that out. I don't know.
Well, maybe you'll have some surprises for them.
I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. So, we'll see. One day at a time, my friend. All right. Well,
Au revoir.
thank you again,
Au revoir.
Gigi, for putting up
Thank
with me in this little adventure of ours.
you. It's always fun, my friend.
All right. Well, have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye bye.